System, because I don't know of any other system other than mechanics liens that allows someone to just put a lien straight on the property. No lawsuit, no proving you're right, no nothing. You can just put a lien on. And I don't know of any other instance where you can do that. I mean, unless you're, like the IRS or somebody like that, but of any other instance where a person can do something like that. So it's different than anything else we have. Okay. Does a claimant need to file a lawsuit and obtain a judgment prior to filing a mechanics lien? No, you don't even need to file a lawsuit before you file it. Once you put the mechanics lien on the property, if you don't get paid, you're going to have to file a lawsuit to collect your money, to collect your money. But you have to file, you can foreclose on the property. Actually, you have a lien already. Okay. How does a recorded mechanics lien affect title to the real property? Okay. Some of this I kind of know, so I'm paraphrasing, but it doesn't, it's like any other lien on the property. It's not going to cause title to say, we can't transfer this property. And it won't cause a buyer to say, I don't want this property. It has to get paid off at the close of escrow, just like a mortgage lien or a second mortgage or any of those kind. So it will be paid off at the close of escrow. And as you guys all know, sometimes sellers don't even know what liens they have on their property. So you might see a mechanics lien that the seller wasn't even aware of. Okay, so a claimant, meaning somebody who, and we're going to get to the definitions, but someone who performs services on a property. So let's say that you have a tenant and your tenant hired someone to build a patio. And, he paid for all the material, the contractor paid for the materials, he built the patio, and the tenant stiffed him. Well, guess what? Unless you do all the right things, owner, you are liable because the property is liable for those bills, not just the tenant. So a claimant, someone who wants to claim that they get money, it has 90 days after recording. First, you record the mechanics lien, and you have 90 days to take legal action to foreclose on the lien. If you don't, then the lien remains on the property but has no effect. Okay, so if you foreclosed on the lien, you're going to keep your lien. If you didn't, it's going to go away, but it never really goes away. It doesn't just disintegrate out of title. So it will still show on your title report, and it still might be an issue with transferring the property without maybe bonding around it or paying it off. But they only have 90 days. So it can't be that the tenant, did something last year and all of a sudden we can't find the tenant anymore and we're looking at a mechanics lien. It has to be filed within, did I miss that? Maybe we didn't get to it yet. It has to be filed within so many days after the work of improvement, and it has to, and within 90 days of filing it, you have to do something about it or it goes away. Okay, how is the priority of a mechanics lien determined? Again, I don't know what their lobby looked like, but amazing that a mechanics lien, as far as their, most things are determined on their order of recording. That's how you determine who's in first position, who's in second position by when they recorded. Okay, but on a mechanics lien, it's not the recording, it's when the work was done. It's the starting, or the completion. Mechanics is based on the date that the work commenced. So if you start work on June 10th, or today's the 12th, on June 12th, and you work on it for 3 months, I mean, on and off, but this and that, and you finally get it done. If you don't get paid, your mechanics lien goes back to the first day. So that's a big deal because that doesn't work again for any other recorded document. It's always the date of recording that determines the order. But mechanics liens go back to that date, even though they could be filed, a long time later, depending on how long the work did. Okay, can a person waive their right to a mechanics lien before work begins? Can we just put in the contract with the contractor that the contractor has no right to file a mechanics lien? No, of course that you can't, because it can't be waived. This is a right that someone who furnishes labor or materials has, and it can't be waived ahead of time. Otherwise, everyone would make it be waived. So the contract between the owner and the mechanics lien mechanic cannot include a clause that says in the event of non-payment by the owner, the mechanic will not record a lien against the property. They have an absolute right and you can't stop them from doing that. Okay, how can a claimant waive their right to a mechanic's lien? Okay, so I'm the claimant, I'm the one doing the work, right? They can only waive it by executing a written statutory waiver form. Okay, typically a waiver form will not be effective until the claimant has been paid for the work. So yes, while they can waive something, and they're talking about you get paid for the work, the contractor gets paid for the work, and they've either filed a mechanic's lien or not, but owner wants something in writing, a waiver form at this point. I've already paid it. I want you to do a waiver so that if, I can get rid of your mechanic's lien. So, but that's what that would be for. It would be to get rid of a mechanic's lien that was already on there. Okay. If a mechanic's lien is recorded, can an owner of a property who wishes to sell or refinance a property take any steps to prevent a mechanic's lien from being a cloud on title on the property, even though the issues behind the mechanic's liens have not been resolved? Okay, so we're having a fight. I don't think I owe you this money. You did a terrible job and you double charged me and I don't want to pay it. But meanwhile, I want to sell my house, or I want to get this lien off my property. Okay, so there is something called a release bond. You could file the owner. So let's say the owner's selling and the only way to sell is to pay it off, is to get rid of the lien, or they could bond around it and then they could sell the property with the bond being in case they lose and not the buyer being in case they lose. The buyer wouldn't take it over. So if you wanted to sell it and you're in the middle, you could do it, and you're still fighting about it, you could file a release bond. I think it says down here it's 125% of the amount that's in dispute. But yeah, once the bond is recorded, the property is released from the mechanic's lien and from any foreclosure action, because there's money to go if they lose. So, okay, who can file a mechanic's lien? Any person who furnishes labor, equipment, or materials for any construction project or work of improvement, and any person who provides work authorized for a site improvement can file a mechanic's lien. California law specifically designates direct contractors, subcontractors, material suppliers, lessors of suppliers of equipment, laborers, and design professionals as being entitled to file a mechanic's lien. So if you stiff your architect who maybe never, walked on the property since it started being built, they can still file a mechanic's lien, an architect, or the person who sold the supplies to the contractor. Okay. Does a claimant always need to be licensed? That's why they say anybody. It's not really anybody. That's not really the story. They're saying no, a claimant. This is the craziest answer, right? Does a claimant always need to be licensed? Well, the answer is yes, really. But they say no, a claimant only requires a license in order to record a mechanic's lien if the work they did requires a license. Okay, so if you did something on someone's property that didn't require a license, but if you did something, you were an unlicensed contractor and you did licensed work on someone's property, you cannot file a mechanic's lien. I guess I used an unlicensed person I built a bathroom in a house a while back, and she was terrible. I mean, the whole thing was a nightmare. And so at the end, I didn't pay her. She filed a mechanic's lien, but she wasn't licensed. And it really just took me to send one letter saying, do you have any idea what could happen to you for doing this? Because this scheme is so out there that they really need to make sure that people are not abusing it. And that would be abusing it if you knew you had no right to file one and you did. So the lady took it off right away. So anyway, you do need to be licensed if you did licensed work. Otherwise, you have no right to file a mechanic's lien. So if you remodel someone's bathroom and in a way that requires a permit and all that, and you don't have a license, then you can't file a mechanic's lien. Doesn't mean that you're not owed the money, but you can't do it through the mechanic's lien statute. You could still file a lawsuit. Okay, so a direct contractor, you guys might already know this. I read these today. Direct contractor is someone who contracts with the owner himself. Okay, with the property owner. Subcontractor, someone who contracts more likely with the general contractor and not with the owner himself. A material supplier, these are all the people that can file. A material supplier supplies and materials that were used in a work of improvement. For them to win, they have to prove that their materials were actually used in the work, in, in whatever was done. A laborer is someone who worked on the work of improvement. So if you don't get paid, you can file a mechanics lien against the owner. If you didn't get paid and you were a laborer, it depends, I guess, on whether or not you had to be licensed. But if you didn't, then you would have a right to file that. Design professional is architect, landscape architect, land surveyor, or registered as a professional engineer. Any of those people work on your property and don't get paid, they can file a mechanics lien. Okay, so basically you can do it for a work of improvement. You could file one for a work of improvement or a site improvement. And they define work of improvement as construction, alteration, repair, demolition, or removal in whole or part or in addition to a building, wharf, bridge, ditch, flume, an aqueduct, well, tunnel, fence, machinery, railroad, or road. Okay, so any of these things. So if you have a build, yeah, well, you get it. Okay. Work of improvement includes seeding, sodding, or planting of real property for landscaping purposes. So if somebody came out and planted your vineyard for you and you didn't pay them, they can file a mechanics lien. Filing, leveling, or grading of real property, the person who graded the property. Work of improvement means the entire structure or scheme of improvement as a whole. Okay. Demolition of trees, drilling test holes, grading, construction of installation of sewers, construction of vault cellars or rooms under sidewalks. Let's put a room under the sidewalk. Any other work of improvement in preparation of the site for a work of improvement. So anything that you had to do to get it ready to be done, maybe demolition. Okay. Are there some persons who might improve a property but who cannot file a mechanics lien? Yes, there are. As we saw, there's the unlicensed contractors down here, but there are also, let's see, a tenant making improvements to the property he or she is leasing cannot file a mechanics lien. So if the tenant actually made the improvements, they cannot file a mechanics lien against the owner. Persons who remove equipment from a work of improvement. So if you're just the one that comes out afterwards and picks up the tractors and the rest of the equipment, you can't file a mechanics lien either. And then unlicensed contractors. Okay, requirements before the mechanics lien. Okay, so before a mechanics lien is recorded, now let's talk about this, because I think this is the most important part of the whole thing. Is the preliminary, the preliminary notice, not this part. Never mind. So before they can file a mechanics lien, they have to give a preliminary notice. It's a written notice that you furnished labor, services, equipment, and materials. You have to give it to the owner, the direct contractor, and the construction lender, if there's a construction lender, before the claimant can record a mechanics lien. So you have to give a preliminary notice before you can file that. What's that? Purchased. Okay. The preliminary notice must be given within 20 days after the claimant has first furnished labor, services, equipment, or materials on the job site. So, and of course, the purpose of this preliminary notice is so that the construction lender and the owner know that something's going on here if they're not the ones who contracted for it. Okay, so it's 20 days. Okay. Which claimants are exempt from the requirements of serving a preliminary notice on the owner? Okay, a direct contractor. So if you contracted directly with the owner, you don't have to serve a preliminary notice. If you're a subcontractor, you do. So I hire John to remodel my kitchen, and he hires a cabinet guy and this guy and that one. And all of those people then are subcontractors, and they can file mechanics liens if John doesn't pay them, because he's the one who's supposed to pay them. Okay. A laborer, meaning a person who performs labor for wages. So if you're a laborer, you don't have to file a preliminary notice.
Cindy, did I understand that correctly? So if I hire Joe and Joe subcontracts the job to 3 other men, and Joe doesn't pay those 3 other men, then those 3 other men can
It goes against the property, goes to the property. So if you're the property owner, it's going to be a lien on your property, right?
How can we guarantee? So we would just have proof of,
We're getting there.
oh, sorry.
We're getting how you can protect yourself. Okay. So this is required. So you would know if you're the owner, first of all, you would know that you would hopefully get a copy of the preliminary notice and go, what the heck is going on? I didn't even know you were doing work on my house. Or I did. Okay, or generally, okay, even though the persons above are generally exempt from giving a preliminary notice, is there any other person they must give a notice to? So they're not exempt because they have to give a notice to the lender. If there's a contract, construction lender, if there is one, then you still have to give them notice. Even if you're like the direct contractor who doesn't need to give the seller notice or the owner notice, they do have to give the construction lender notice. Okay, so what does the preliminary notice contain? It contains the name, address of the contractor, of the construction lender. So it has all the information in it people are going to need, a description, street address, relationship of the parties giving the notice, a general statement of work to be provided, all of that. So here's my preliminary notice. I started work owner. I just want you to know I'm working on your property. Here's my notice. In addition, the claimant must provide you also have to put in this notice to property owner. So if you're the owner, you should get this and you should know that someone is contracted, if you didn't do it, contracted for work on your property. And that's your first, if you didn't know already, that would be your first thing that would raise your awareness. Okay, can the claimant include in the contract for work language where the owner waives his or her right to receive a preliminary notice? And of course, no, you can't waive your right to get a preliminary notice. Who must the potential claimant give the notice to? The owner or the reputed owner of the property, the direct contractor, and the construction lender. Those are the three. Okay, how is it served? Service on a person, you could serve it by first class or registered mail, which is what you would do, or posting in mail, where you post it and then mail a copy. When it's placed in the mail, it's considered given. So as long as you place it in the mail, what was it, 20 days? So you have 20 days to put it in the mailbox, not for them to receive it. Because if notice is placed in the mail, the notice is complete when deposited. So you want to send it overnight or some way where you can prove when it was put in there. Okay, it's effective when it's delivered, when you get it, or it's effective when it was put into the mailbox. Okay, does there have to be a proof of service? Is required because we have to have somebody prove that they served that notice under a penalty of perjury. What if the notice is not served, but a mechanics lien is filed? Well, then the mechanics lien is no good. And you can try to get it off or try to make them take it off or send them a nasty letter like I did and threaten them, and then they will take it off because it's no good. And it can't be enforced. When can the direct contractor record a valid mechanics lien? The direct contractor is eligible to file once he or she has not been paid or has only been partially paid by the owner after the direct contractor has completed the work required by the contract. So again, you could have stages. I mean, the contractors don't get it all at the end. They'll say when all the flooring is in, you owe this. When all the cabinets are in, you owe this. So I think that's what they mean by after all the work has been done, the work for that portion. If there is a construction lender regarding the property, the construction lender must first have been with a preliminary notice prior to the filing of the mechanics lien. Right, well, they would have had to receive a preliminary notice. Correct. We already talked about that. Okay. So what's completion mean for the purpose of filing a mechanics lien? Completion is the contractor has actually completed the work. A cessation of labor for a continuous period of 60 days. So the owner says, stop working on my property. I'm mad at you. And 60 days go by. You didn't finish the work, but you can still file a mechanics lien for what you did. If the owner has recorded a notice of cessation, which is the same thing as just telling him to get off the property, stop working. And it's okay. So if he files the formal paper, it only takes 30 days of no work before you can file the mechanics lien. The work has ceased and the owner is occupying or using the improvement. So I guess if it didn't finish right, but it finished and they're using it, nobody has a problem, then that's okay. Okay. This is interesting. A work may be considered complete if an owner anticipatorily breaches the contract and says that no payments will be made. People get mad at their general contractors, I'm not paying, they could threaten, and then you can go ahead and get your mechanics lien filed. Then it says, what is the time frame, which I thought was the other question. So no more than 90 days must have elapsed after the completion of the work of improvement for a direct contractor to file a mechanics lien. However, if the owner has recorded either a notice of completion or a notice of cessation, then the contractor has no more than 60 days to either notice of either notice. They didn't do this very well, this one, to record a mechanics lien. So so 90 days. So you're done. You didn't pay them. You guys are fighting back and forth. 90 days go by and they didn't file a mechanics lien. They can't anymore. Now, if the owner records a notice of completion or a notice of cessation, so the owner is just sick of this guy, they go and they file a notice of cessation, then they only have 60 days to file their mechanics lien or they lose. Let's get these. What is a notice of cessation? Okay, notice of cessation is a notice verified and recorded by the owner in the office of the county recorder, in which the owner, when the work of property is either stopped or been completed. So it's been stopped. I'm filing a notice of cessation. I don't want you working on it anymore. The owner may record the notice of completion within 15 days of the date of completion of the work. So the owner has 15 days to file a notice of completion. And I don't know that they need to or not. I don't think they do. So you want to give the notice of cessation? No, let's forget that. Okay. Okay, what does a claimant do after a mechanics lien has been recorded? So now I recorded my mechanics lien. Now what? The claimant can file suit to foreclose on the real property in order to recover sums owed. Okay, so you can foreclose on your mechanics lien. But as you guys know, if your mechanics lien is after the mortgage and maybe a second and maybe some other liens, then if you foreclose, you take it subject to all those liens ahead of you. So if you foreclose on a, $20,000 or $30,000, maybe it's a more even $100,000 mechanics lien, you are stuck with them with, everything ahead of you. So you're still going to have to keep the mortgage current, or they're going to foreclose on you. So I don't know how often this happens when there's other liens in front of them, whether they want the property or how that works. Okay. What happens to the mechanics lien if the claimant does not take action to foreclose on the lien within 90 days of recording? The lien at that point is not valid. The owner should make a written demand to the claimant to expunge the lien. If it's not expunged, the owner can go into court and do something themselves. Otherwise, it just kind of sits there. And next time you go to sell, title will bring it up and you'll explain, and hopefully they'll be able to research it and they will see that the lien is void or not valid. Okay. How can an owner be released from liability for a mechanics lien? So they can be, but you can't get released until you pay it. Many owners require claimants to provide such a waiver concurrently with full payment or a progress payment. Each time that you now have done that, this is complete, and you don't have to worry about the stuff that's already done. Okay, we're not going to talk about the 4 kinds of waivers. Okay. There's a place where you can get mechanics liens releases. Okay, this is what I want to go over. When is an owner not liable for a tenant or prospective buyers contracting for a work of improvement on the property? When am I just not liable? Not my fault. Okay, an owner won't be liable when a tenant or prospective buyer does not pay a claim if they had no knowledge of the work of improvement. Okay, so you're an out-of-state tenant, an out-of-state landlord, you've got a tenant on your property. You had no idea that they tore down 3 rooms and started rebuilding. Okay. And again, if the owner has no knowledge, that means they didn't get a notice they didn't get a, whatever that thing was, that notice you had to send. Yeah, and so if that happens, it only attaches to the lessee's interest, and the lessee doesn't usually have any kind of monetary interest, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. this is what the owner can do to protect themselves. When they know someone else is doing work on their property, they can post a notice of non-responsibility. You post it on the property, you record it, okay? When the owner has knowledge that the tenant or prospective buyer has contracted for work to be done on the property, that there will be no liability on the owner if he or she posts and records a notice of non-responsibility within 10 days of learning about the construction. So now I'm the owner, I find out, maybe I even know, my tenant calls me and says, I'm doing these works of improvement, yeah, I'm paying for them, et cetera, et cetera. And the landlord says, okay. Oh, she posted, records it, right. Okay, and then the landlord posts on the property and records a notice of non-responsibility, and it says, I'm not going to be responsible for anything this person does on the property. And that works if you filed and record, but you have to record it, and everyone doesn't go to all those lengths. Okay, so again, it attaches there will be no liability for the owner if she posts and records a notice of non-responsibility within 10 days. Then the mechanics lien will attach only to the lessee's improvements on the property if the lessee has anything to sell it or any financial benefit from that. When an owner has knowledge of the construction but does not post or record a notice of non-responsibility within 10 days, the court assumes that the owner accepts the lessee's actions and will allow a mechanic to secure a mechanics lien. Okay, so that's how you do it, is when you hear of something like this, you say, wow, did you send a notice of non-responsibility? Or do you realize that once they start, you only have 10 days to send a notice of non-responsibility? It informs persons eligible to file mechanics liens that the owner did not commission the work and will not be held liable if the non-owner who contracted for the work defaults on the payment. So this is the part that I thought this is the most important part, is that we know enough about it to oh my gosh, that we know enough about it to advise our client the minute we hear, because 10 days isn't that long that you have to do this. If a notice of non-responsibility has been posted and recorded, the claimant may still record a mechanics lien. However, the lien will attach only to the lessee's improvements on the property and not to the entire real property. I don't know how you foreclose on the lessee's improvements. A notice of non-responsibility protects an owner from a mechanics lien only where the owner is not involved in the construction process and therefore is truly not responsible for the work. So if the owner participates, including overseeing the project, having final approval of the plans and directing the workers, then the owner is also a participant and can't file a notice of non-responsibility. So these are the things that you have to keep in your head when you start hearing about it. The owner says, yeah, I'm letting them remodel, but I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm making sure of this. They're just paying for it. Well, then you're part of it. And then you are not going to be able to file a notice of non-responsibility. I mean, I don't know that I'd rather not see the plans and make sure I approve of them rather than be able to file a notice of non-responsibility. It's not necessarily a black and white choice. Okay, I think that was the rest of it. Yeah, the rest is on garbage. Oh, I wanted to show you before I stop sharing. Where's my wait a minute. I did print. Share again. I did print a copy of a notice of non-responsibility from a landlord, and this is what you would. This is if a tenant's going to do something. This is what you would fill out, and not only you have to notarize it because not only do you have to provide it, but you also have to. Post it on the property, but you have to record it. I just Googled this. I got this. There might be one in Car. I didn't even look. But anyway, I wanted you to see what it looked like. Okay, now I can stop sharing.
Cindy, you said you had to post it on the property?
You post it on the property so that anyone going to do, and somewhere in a conspicuous space where if someone was coming on there to do work, they would see it. Oh, look, the owner has done this, and so I better make sure this tenant pays up front because he has very little to lose, not like an owner who has a lot more to lose.
I see.
Cindy, I have a question.
Mhm.
Does it only apply to the landlord tenant? Would it also apply for, let's say, you're in escrow and then the buyer did some improvement on the property?
Same thing. If the buyer contracted someone else to put in improvements and didn't pay for them, then as a seller, as the owner, you would be liable. They go with the property. They don't go with the contractor person.
So the best thing to handle this is if you are in escrow, right? And let's say, like the transaction that we did, remember? The buyer and the seller agent made improvement on the property. Can you use this paperwork?
Yeah, we you could send, if they're hiring other people, if they're doing it themselves, I don't know how you would do that. But if they're hiring a contractor to do it, yes, you could give the contractor a notice of non-responsibility. I want you to know this is just the buyer doing this. I have no responsibility for it.
Okay, but also at the same token, to protect the interest of your seller, you're giving them a note too that the seller will not be held liable if in case the transaction does not close, correct?
Right, and doesn't close and the buyer contracted for it, then the buyer's still responsible, correct?
Okay, all right. Awesome, thank you.
Anybody else?
Can we see the, can we see the document in one more time, but just the top portion?
I still have it open.
Thank you, Cindy.
I'm not sure where I got this. Like I said, I just Googled it. But you can see it's not very long. I mean, there's just a few things that you need to do. Owner will not be responsible for any claim. I mean, this is what you have to, right? In the end, you have to understand what they are, but you have to know about this because this is probably the only thing in this whole process that we would advise a client about is, make sure that you're getting, yeah, we'll let them come on and change the pipes, but we're going to do this. But sometimes the buyers come on and do it themselves, and then there's really nobody they don't contract with somebody, so. Oh, okay.
Cindy, I
Thank
have a
you.
question for you, Gabby.
Hi, Gabby.
How you doing? My question is, what is the best way to protect ourselves as a homeowner against people that are having contractors that they having in the house when it's time to pay them? Do we have to send like a letter, say, okay, I pay you for this and this and this, and I pay with a check, so we have proof that they pay, because
Right.
sometimes people pay cash and later they can file a mechanic lien and good luck.
Even getting a
trying
receipt,
to-
right? Paying cash is just a
Uh-huh.
bad idea because it gets so hard to prove. Because
Yeah,
even if they give you a receipt, I mean, it's just something somebody hand wrote. Anyone could do that.
yeah. So what is the best way to protect ourselves?
Is to make sure that your payment is by check or even wire, doesn't matter. Anything that you can prove is an approvable form, cashier's check, whatever you want. You want to have cash, go get a cashier's check. But make sure that it's provable and that you have some receipt that, that you'll have proof that they cashed it, that they got it.
Besides the check, do you
But
recommend
the other thing is when you pay them, you could have, if someone does work for you, when you pay them, you should have them sign whatever that other thing was called, the waiver form.
Oh,
So I'm
the
done
waiver
with you.
for-
I paid you. You just remodeled my whole kitchen. Thank you so much. I love it. Here's your payment. You sign this. Sign off saying that it's done and that you've been paid in full.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Thank you.
Where
Well,
can we find that?
hold on. Let me just go back and look. I think I'll find it. I'll include it when I send this out. Let me go.
That's the Zelle. when you-
Thank you. I need both of those forms.
Yeah, I'll for sure send the one I showed you, and then I'll find the other one too.
Cindy, I have a question. What about when we pay them on Zelle? Does
Yeah,
that,
that's fine. There's a record. There's a record of who paid and where it went. Yeah,
okay,
anything's okay like that. It's just cash, something you hand someone that there's no proof of how much you gave or whether you gave it or whether or not, I mean, cash is nobody uses it anymore. Shh. Except for people keep it under their mattress.
Well, sometimes, the people, they have some contractor that say, if you pay me cash, I will give you a 10, 20% discount,
Right.
da.
And if you do that, you better get something in writing saying that I've been.
In
paid
writing,
for it.
right? Sign it like, okay, I
Correct.
pay you this and this and this, and
Correct.
this is signature and
For
I don't know,
anything, not just
reference
for this, but
number of
for anything. Yeah. yeah.
some kind of proof, right? Okay.
Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you guys. Next week, we're doing the new forms, new updates. I'm taking a class tomorrow from not even Gov Hutchinson, the bigger guy. Can't think of his name. The head guy. Anyway, and I'll be prepared to go over whatever ones we need to go over. I understand that out of the like 34 that have changes, many of them are just one word or one sentence. So it won't take too long. So we'll do that next week. So we'll see you next week for the June form release.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.